Did you have any idea of what you wanted to do post football? Like, did you know, like, hey, like I want to be a lawyer, or like?
No, I mean, I knew I wanted to work in sports. I wanted to work in sports like management or sports administration. And somebody like dropped a seed in my head at the University of Washington about law school. Like they were like, "Oh, have you thought about law school?" Because they were studying for the LSAT at the time, and they were like, "Well, you write good papers, you like reading, you don't mind reading and stuff like that. So, have you ever thought about law school? Like, if I'm like, so that's really the first time the seed was dropped in my head about like potentially going to law school. But I knew a law degree would just provide like versatility and provide you with different options and the skill sets and knowledge to work in really any sector and definitely in sports because, like I think you can do so much. Like you learn about contracts, you learn about like regulatory issues, you learn just I just think like law school can uh, provide versatility in the job market. So that's kind of something that was like in the back of my head, but I knew I wanted to still like stay connected to sports somehow, some way. I remember at the University of Washington when I was like playing my freshman year, like we're playing like it was during like preseason or training camp basically. So, we're going through the dog days of training camp and I'm like looking on the sidelines and people are out there watching and I see Scott Woodward just, kind of walking around. I didn't know who he was at the time because I was like a freshman and wasn't really aware like who he was. I was like, oh, who's that guy? Like, and he's the athletic director and he's just like walking around like talking to people, talking to the players. I'm like, dang, I mean, he looks pretty happy, like he's just hanging out, like watching like University of Washington football team, and that was sort of my first impression of like an athletic director. And so not knowing, like he deals with way more than that, and he has tons of responsibility. But that kind of was like, oh, okay, like that kind of sparked my interest in working in like college athletics or athletic administration. That was like my first impression of what an athletic director was. And obviously he's at LSU now. He's doing a great job. So, but yeah, that's kind of, I took you all over the place, but yeah, that was kind of something that I knew I wanted to do which was like work in sports whenever football ended. I'm not exactly sure how that looked, but I knew like law school would help me get to that point.
Well, dude, this is going to be perfect. We're going to get you to be the next director of athletics at Arizona State. You'll bring the Sun Devils back to the promised land, and then everybody at University of Washington is going to be like, "What the heck?" And then you're going to be like, "Hey, this guy Collin, I jumped on his podcast.
Oh,
We were talking about life and my career and my journey, and he planted that Arizona State AD seed."
hey, you never know. You never know. You never know down the line. I mean, I would love to work for like a pro team or college team or a union or something. So, yeah, my keep trying to keep my options open, I guess, in the sports world.
Now you're in law school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. You're an SEC guy now. I had Brandon Lloyd, former NFL wide receiver, on the podcast not too long ago, and it was super interesting because he went back to the University of Illinois, I think like 20 years after he left for the NFL to get his undergraduate degree. And in an article, somebody said to him, "You don't need a degree, you are you." Why was it so important to go back to Washington, get that undergraduate degree? And why do you think it's even more important to go back to school to further your education now?
I'm biased because I just always have been one to, I guess, see the value in education, and that really like I guess was crystallized when I went to the University of Washington, and I just read, that's the first time I was like, okay, like what would I want to do after football? Like you hear it all the time as an athlete growing up, like sports don't define you. Sports, you're more than an athlete, and sometimes it takes more time for you to actually start believing that and taking actions towards being more than just an athlete because sports is such a big part of your identity and society holds sports at such a high value. But like really when I was at the University of Washington, um, I just always knew that like there was like life after football, and that's when I really first started like taking those steps and working towards thinking about what I wanted to do when like football ended. But I think getting your education is important because it just not only like do you get a degree or a piece of paper, but I think it also just develops your character in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to discipline and study habits and developing a love for like learning and stuff like that. You never know, even if you're a professional football player and you play 10, 15 years and you make, life money that to last you for your entire life, you still want to, you know, sort of have this intellectual curiosity that's going to allow you to do things after you're retired. Like if you say you start a business or you start a foundation, you kind of want to like know at least what's going on or know about the different moving parts of your organization or of like know the basic concepts of like business. I think you don't want to just passively like push those responsibilities on people who are running your business or organization and not really and be ignorant to all that's going on and all that you need to know to like actually run a successful business or have a successful or know what to do with your money, like in terms of like investing and stuff like that. So I think an education sort of just lays that foundation and teaches you like ways to like basically teaches you how to be a more effective learner. And also like for me, like I knew like, well, given how things were going, I didn't make enough money that would last me for like the rest of my life. So I knew like an education was also a vehicle to just provide a second career and allow me to like pursue other interests and fall into like a second passion. And so that's kind of why I chose to like always valued like education, even post grad education, like a master's degree or doctorate's degree or something like that. But I think definitely like education is important, even if it's not formal education, always trying to educate yourself, like self-education and just learning whatever your interests and passions are, like just, I guess, learning how to, operate in those spaces. And, I think it's just like, helps in so many different ways. So
I don't really think I hit my stride educationally until I was at Arizona State. Then I loved it. Like I loved going to, I had never loved going to class prior to college in my entire life. And I'm in this environment. And I remember after I graduated with a degree in broadcast journalism, I told my mom, like, I'm never going back to school ever again. And she said like, hey, don't say that. I haven't gone back to school, but it's interesting now as a 32-year-old man, like I really have thought to myself, like, it would be cool to go back to school and to learn more and to expand and to grow. And I think those are the opportunities that it provides.
Yeah, I mean, even like guys like Brandon Lloyd, like if you say, oh, like the guy was like, oh, you don't have to go back to school, you're Brandon Lloyd. It's like, okay, down the line, you may have marketing deals or different endorsement opportunities just based off of your name. And, you would want to like kind of know what's going on in the contracts or be able to maybe learn more about the marketing space or the NIL space to kind of know how to leverage your brand, leverage who you are as a person, and just try to utilize your brand for your benefit. And so like I said, you never know. I think education it's just important, and no matter who you are, just to always educate and grow and continue to learn.
Well, you hit on such a great point, dude. It's like you want to know, like, we're not going to be a professional in everything that we do. That's just not physically or mentally possible. But you want to somewhat be in the know or have like some level of understanding. And to your point, like, yeah, like if you're in on those big deals, and you have that educational backing that was able to kind of give you a bird's eye view into that, I think you're going to be more confident, and you're going to be more confident in your ability, and you're going to be able to ask those questions as opposed to just like, I play in the NFL, this is who I am, and you take care of it. Because I understand that is an easier avenue to take than going back to school or learning about whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, or even like I would say like with investments, like you hear horror stories all the time of like, investments and financial advisors and stuff. And I think I know there's only, oftentimes a few bad apples can sort of uh ruin it for everyone. But I would say like as players, just kind of knowing at least the basics of like investment strategy and like different types of investments, and just like you said, knowing how to ask those questions, about like, ask your financial advisor or ask someone like, okay, what's going on, or what do explain more to me about this, just so you can kind of know what's going on. Because you hear a lot of horror stories about pro athletes and stuff, and them just making bad investment choices. And so I think a lot of that could be avoided if they valued just educating themselves and learning about those types of things and not just going purely off of, the fact that they were a former athlete, and really just for them to work. Like, I think it's important for athletes to just always work to expand their identity beyond just being an athlete, because life is long. Your professional career, even if you play 10 years in the league, you're like, what, 30 years old, and you still have all this like life to live. So there's going to be so many more like things you're going to be a part of, and opportunities that are going to come that aren't necessarily tied to like you being the best athlete possible. So I think, yeah, it's just important to know these things, and education can help prepare players for life after football in a lot of ways. And it doesn't have to be a whole degree. Like, guys can get like certificates, or just, YouTube now, YouTube University, that's a thing. So, I think there's so many different resources out here to like learn from and prepare yourself for whatever it is you want to go into when the game's over.
This is why I love what you're doing and how you're thinking about going back into athletics, like athletic administration at a university or going to work for an NFL team. Because I mean, Bishop, you played the NFL, you play Division I football. Like, if anyone understands all this stuff, it's gonna be you. Like, you lived and breathed it for so long. Now you have an opportunity to maybe help. I mean, you're going to have tons of other duties if you take on like a director of athletics role like Scott Woodward, but you're also going to be able to help the next wave of athletes, maybe navigate some of these things because you yourself experienced it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, that's really been my main thing, is just looking to grow as a person and provide value in those spaces that I've, been in, and to like former athlete or to other athletes, and younger athletes and former athletes, just be able to, my biggest thing is to provide insight and just share any advice I have to like about ways to navigate the high school space or the college football space, or during the pros, or like life after the game, and how to like transition from that, or steps you should be taking to like transition from playing football. And as I'm learning and discovering new things about myself, I'm looking for new ways to give back to younger athletes, and whether it be with sports stuff, student stuff, academic stuff. I think just approaching an athlete from like a holistic, like as a whole person, and looking at their like journey holistically, I think that's something that I aim to do and strive to do going forward. And I look to help like younger athletes coming up after me as well.